The glow of the Christmas tree cast the room in a steady golden light. The smell of gingerbread cookies drifted out of the kitchen and mixed with a faint hint of cinnamon. Flames danced in the fireplace, throwing fleeting shapes over the old ornaments. Glass balls, frayed garlands, little wooden angels that carried years of stories. Outside, the snow had a silence of its own. Even so, the cold I felt came from inside. I already knew every detail of that night, like someone who's memorized a script. I sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, and waited for the scene to play out. My mom came in first. Her red robe announced her before she said a word, already giving away the pride she felt. In her hands, a small box wrapped in gold paper and white ribbon glimmered under the tree's light. My dad followed right after, steaming tea in his mug, posture relaxed, satisfied look. He didn't need to say anything. The way he savored the moment was in his tight-lipped smile. And then Lauren showed up. Sitting with perfect posture, she traced the rim of a mug of hot chocolate, like that motion was part of a dance. Her hair fell in calculated waves. Her confident smile owned the whole scene. She knew, we all knew, that her gift was the one everyone was waiting for, that all eyes would stay on her until the bow came off. As the box passed from hand to hand toward Lauren, I felt the weight of Christmas replaying its own show. And there, in the instant before the wrapping tore, I realized the room's silence still held something unsaid, something that maybe, this time, would slip off script. It all started when Mom stepped forward twice, heart racing, and placed the box in Lauren's hands. "We've been working on this surprise for months," she whispered, eyes sparkling. "You deserve it." Lauren took a deep breath, holding everyone hostage to her timing. She untied the bow slowly, almost in slow motion, until the gold paper slid onto the rug. Total silence. Even the wall clock didn't dare tick. I knew it wouldn't be just any present. The shine leaking through the lid's crack gave away something meant to impress. When the last fold opened, a silver key resting on black velvet appeared, catching the light like a freshly found treasure. Lauren let out a sharp gasp, the kind that usually ends luxury commercials. Mom laid a hand on her shoulder, voice thick with pride. "It's the key to your apartment. Your own place." The news exploded in the room. Congrats crisscrossed the air, hugs, applause. Dad nodded, restrained smile, eyes watery. Lauren ran to him repeating, "Thank you," like a victory chorus, clutching the key so hard her knuckles turned white. Her happiness lit up everything, and for a moment, dimmed the rest of us. I stayed seated, quiet, with a white envelope between my fingers. No ribbon, no box, just paper. Dad dropped it in my lap after a quick, "This is for you," and went back to focusing on Lauren, like her moment was the only one that mattered. Nobody waited for me to open it. Nobody asked what was inside. I ran my thumb along the envelope's edge. The paper gave way, too light to hold anything worthwhile. Inside, probably a card, maybe a small check, just enough to keep up appearances, never enough to make me feel seen. Across the room, Lauren raised a key high. Her smile lit the whole place. Laughter, photos, collective admiration. In that showcase of praise, she was the sun, and I, the shadow. I closed my hand around the envelope, feeling the paper crumple under the pressure. It wasn't just a lame present. It was the same message I got every year, every birthday, every Christmas. "You're a footnote in the family story." I looked at the window. Snow fell slowly, covering everything outside in white. A silent world far from this cramped room. There, in the fogged-up glass's stillness, I noticed something. As long as I stayed stuck in this designer's script, no one would notice when I left the stage. And that's when I understood. That envelope, empty of meaning to them, could be the turning point for me. It didn't matter what was written on the paper. What mattered was what I chose to write from then on. I swore I wouldn't let Lauren's triumph invade my thoughts again. All I had to do was remember how my parents bowed to her happiness, like nothing else existed, and the past ripped open like a fresh cut. I closed my eyes to hold back the flood, but memories surged, each one throbbing where it never healed. The most stubborn one starts on my 9th birthday. I spent the week picturing a simple cake, candles lit, laughter around the table. Nothing fancy, just the certainty that for one night, I'd be seen. That morning, Mom brought the news in the flat voice of someone talking about the weather. "Lauren has an important ballet rehearsal today. You understand, right? Opportunities like this don't come along often." I nodded, swallowing the lump that wanted to escape. I could still celebrate, I told myself. So I stayed in the kitchen, stirring the batter for my own cake with small hands that shook from effort and hope. I smoothed the frosting, piped chocolate flowers, and blew out the candles alone, imagining applause that wasn't there. That night, the house buzzed with stories about the rehearsal. Lauren's grace, Lauren's talent, Lauren's future. It wasn't forgetfulness. They remembered my birthday. They just chose not to show up. And it wouldn't be the last time. 8th grade science fair. But that's another story, saved for when I have the courage to open it. For now, know that some dates mark the skin, others, the soul. I spent whole weeks in a cramped room, buried in tiny gears and plastic blades, until I turned a pile of scraps into a perfect model of a wind turbine. Glue dried on my fingers, paint stuck under my nails, and the hours stretched past midnight without me noticing. When I presented the prototype, the science teacher stifled a gasp of surprise. Then she pointed to the blades spinning smoothly and declared, "This is extraordinary." For the first time, I felt that word, extraordinary, could maybe define something I'd made. On fair day, my name echoed through the loudspeakers. First place. My chest swelled like the turbine's blades were tied to my heart. I climbed the stage, gripping the certificate so hard the paper tore. I looked out at the audience for 2 familiar faces. Their reserved seats were empty. That night, I came home ready to share the win. Mom was scrolling through her phone feed. She looked up for a second, said she'd had to take Lauren to an audition. Opportunities like that don't come along every day. And went back to the screen. Dad nodded without lifting his eyes from the laptop. I shoved the certificate in some drawer, where dust took care of folding the corners. In senior year, I decided I wouldn't be ignored. I studied until the letters danced in the books, joined every club, took test after test, chasing something too big to go unnoticed. When the college letter arrived, my hands shook as I opened it. Full scholarship, the phrase glowed like neon. I walked into the living room holding the envelope up, hoping this time would be different. Mom flipped through the paper for a second, let out a thin sigh, and dropped the sentence. "At least you're good for something." No hug, applause, or smile, just a slouched shoulder and the kind of silence that pushes you into the corner of the room. That same year, when Lauren got into an ordinary art school, they threw a party, invited the neighbors, raised glasses, and repeated the feat out loud until the walls knew the speech by heart. I watched from the shadows while my own trophy shrank, became a footnote, then dust. I blinked back to the present. The room still pulsed with light and laughter, but it didn't reach me. Lauren spun in the center, hugged by Mom, thanking nonstop, crowned once more. I let the envelope slide into my lap, light as the importance they gave it. The key Lauren held up shimmered like a border. On one side, the celebrated daughter. On the other, me, the shadow everyone forgets to name. But shadows take up space too. They stretch when the sun goes down, holding their shape without any spotlight. I realized their neglect hadn't put out my resolve. It just left it on standby. This year, I'm not staying in the corner. This year, I'm taking back what's mine. And anyone who needs to hear it, listen up. 2 weeks after Christmas, with the city already out of sparkle and life back on track, the phone shattered the silence of my apartment. "Melissa, your dad threw out his back fixing up the garage. Can you come help?" Mom asked, pitching her voice to sound sweet. I thought about saying no. The memory of Christmas Eve still burned like salt on an open wound. That envelope they forgot, a symbol of a whole year of neglect. Even so, a gut feeling insisted. In that house, every call came with strings attached. "I'll come," I said, flat, promising nothing else. I hit the road that afternoon, and when I walked into the old house, I felt like a tourist in a private museum of my past. Every room was a polished display case. In the living room, the walls showed off the Lauren Gallery. First ballet slipper, school play, fine arts graduation, gold frames, perfect lighting. I looked for myself. I found one lonely photo wedged between magazines on the shelf, my college diploma, frayed edges. A footnote, not a chapter. Dad, sitting in his armchair, rubbed his lower back with a stiff look on his face. "Need you to move some boxes in the garage," he said without even looking up. "No, hi, no, thanks. Just the order." I took a deep breath. I knew behind those boxes there might be more than old junk. There were years of stories stacked up, waiting to collapse, and this time I was ready to dig through every one of them. I nodded slightly. If my family insisted on seeing me only as the helpful daughter, I'd wear that costume one more time. Not for them, but to close a chapter inside me. While I sorted dusty boxes in the garage, my fingers bumped into wrenches, yellowed photos, smells of the past. That's when I noticed something out of place. The door to Dad's office, always locked with a code only he knew, was ajar. A streak of light from the desk lamp sliced through the hallway like a whispered invitation. My pulse spiked. Part of me wanted to back away, pretend I saw nothing. But the other part, tired of being an extra, stepped forward before I could stop it. The office showed its usual order, pens lined up, folders labeled, nothing out of place. Even so, the air felt suspended, heavy, like it was waiting for a crack. In the back, the safe, that wall of secrets, had the sliver of a door left ajar. A mistake Dad would never make. I came closer with trembling hands. Fear whispered to turn back, that ignorance was at least safe. But the urge to finally see, to stop being a shadow, won. I grabbed the safe handle, took a deep breath, and pulled. Stacks of documents appeared, piled with a precision that revealed years of care, and maybe the weight of truths he never wanted to share. I started flipping through the labeled folders, still without seeing the whole picture. Each tab promised another puzzle piece. Then my fingers felt something different, a thick envelope sealed with care, handwritten with the instruction that froze my blood, "Open only if I die." The warning only sped me up. I tore it open. Inside was a stack of deeds, bank statements, and contracts that made me hold my breath. At first glance, it was just numbers and notary stamps. But when I turned the third page, I saw my name on a deed for an apartment bought 5 years ago. I'd never heard of that place. I kept going. Loans, transfers, mortgages, everything filed under my tax ID, everything with my signature. The detail that floored me. The signatures looked real. I recognized every stroke even though I'd never held that pen. The final blow came in the last folder. 3 years ago, someone took out a huge loan in my name to prop up Lauren's fashion label, the project the family pitched as her big leap. While I lived in the dark, they turned my name into a financial puppet. In that moment, I understood the small favors, the forgotten birthdays, were just the cover of a much darker book. What I was holding wasn't mere carelessness or favoritism, it was pure betrayal, and the story was now in my hands to tell. That night, I saw, in black and white, the proof of the betrayal that had kept me in the shadows for years. Sheets spread across the kitchen table laid out secret transactions, forged signatures, dates that buried the truth under numbers. Every line shouted the same message. They'd turned my name into the foundation for Lauren's dreams while I got nothing but silence and scraps. I took a deep breath. If I stayed there, stuck in anger, nothing would change. But if I moved, everything could change. I wasn't a finance expert, just woman enough to know damage when I saw it. I needed someone who could turn that chaos into action. At dawn, the sky still gray, I searched my phone for the only contact I trusted. Ethan, a finance lawyer I'd met on a small job years before. The phone rang forever. When he picked up, I felt the first thread of hope in a long time. "Ethan, I need you to look at some documents," I said, my voice steady despite the insomnia. "I need to know how deep this goes, and how we can get it back." On the other end, a quick silence, then, "Send everything now." He knew urgency isn't negotiable. I sent every file, then stared at the closed door of my apartment. Outside it, the world kept going, clueless that I'd just lit the fuse on something way bigger than settling a score. That same night, I promised myself no one else would decide who I am. The phone buzzed before I had time to rethink. "Melissa, it's been a while." "What happened?" Ethan asked, his usual calm hiding the urgency I felt. I took a deep breath, like air could prop up my courage. "I need you. This is bigger than it looks." I sent the documents and set up a meeting for that afternoon. The gap between the call and the meeting was a tight knot in my chest. Bills, memories, fears, all squeezed into hours that dragged by. When I walked into the office, Ethan's face already carried the answers I was afraid of. He slid the stack of papers back to me, no sugarcoating. "This isn't just skimming money," he said. "It's fraud. You could report it right now and come out on top." The word fraud echoed like a hammer. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part couldn't start a war that would tear my family apart. I looked at him, steady, trying to tame the shake inside. "Not yet. First, I need to know where the money went, what assets back the debt, how much is left to repay. I need a plan I control." Ethan crossed his arms, weighing my request. "Then let's find out. But Melissa, figuring all this out is just the first step. Then comes choosing how far you're willing to go." I nodded. There was no going back. In split seconds, I realized the next decisions would define who I'd be and who else would pay the price. He held out his hand, offering partnership and maybe redemption. "Do we start now?" he asked. It was the hook I needed. I breathed again, lighter this time. "Now." Ethan drummed his pen on the table, eyes locked on me. After days of digging through documents and cross-checking numbers, he came back with the revelation that flipped my world upside down. The old house on the lake, the family pride, as my parents always said, had been handed to the bank. 3 years ago, to save Lauren's fashion label, they'd mortgaged the place. The business tanked in its first year, the payments fell behind, and now the bank had scheduled the auction. There it was, the symbol of their success, our summers of sun-soaked laughter, all about to vanish. For an instant, I couldn't breathe. The next, an idea sparked. I wouldn't insult them or demand explanations. There was a better way, quiet, precise, impossible to see coming. While Ethan showed me the papers, a slow smile spread. I'd let the auction roll on, but I wouldn't just watch. I'd change that house's fate, and with it, everyone else's. They wouldn't notice the move until the ground shifted under their feet. I needed that house, period. But I couldn't raise the slightest suspicion. So Ethan and I choreographed a lie that matched theirs. First step, bring in the investment firm he trusted. They'd buy the property from the bank. My name wouldn't show up on any contract, receipt, or hallway whisper. Clean. The process slid forward fast, like someone nudging every piece into place. In a few weeks, signatures done, ownership transferred, title recorded. The lakeside house was mine, only mine, and nobody knew. The old house on the lake, the family pride, as my parents always said, had been handed to the bank. 3 years ago, to save Lauren's fashion label, they'd mortgaged the place. The business tanked in its first year, the payments fell behind, and now the bank had scheduled the auction. There it was, the symbol of their success. Our summers of sun-soaked laughter, all about to vanish. For an instant, I couldn't breathe. The next, an idea sparked. I wouldn't insult them or demand explanations. There was a better way, quiet, precise, impossible to see coming. While Ethan showed me the papers, a slow smile spread. I'd let the auction roll on, but I wouldn't just watch. I'd change that house's fate, and with it, everyone else's. They wouldn't notice the move until the ground shifted under their feet. I needed that house, period. But I couldn't raise the slightest suspicion, so Ethan and I choreographed a lie that matched theirs. First step, bring in the investment firm he trusted. They'd buy the property from the bank. My name wouldn't show up on any contract, receipt, or hallway whisper. Clean. The process slid forward fast, like someone nudging every piece into place. In a few weeks, signatures done, ownership transferred, title recorded. The lakeside house was mine, only mine. and nobody knew. Then I waited. From afar, I watched my parents unravel. Mom called every favor she was owed, begging for a loan. Her voice shook, her facade crumbled. Lauren fired off acidic messages, blaming them for letting her house slip through their fingers, every word dripping privilege. I read, listened, and let the silence work. The deeper their panic grew, the clearer it was who'd pulled the first thread. And I held the truth like a weapon, ready for the moment it would do the most damage. It took years for the illusion to ripen and rot. When Christmas came back around, the living room felt like a recycled set, the same gold lights blinking, the same red ornaments swaying on the tree. Everything sparkled but gave off no warmth. The scent of gingerbread cookies floated like spray, covering cracks only I could see. Lauren claimed her usual throne on the couch, wine glass raised with the confidence of someone who never loses. Mom appeared in front of her with a silver-wrapped box, voice thick with pride, like she was about to announce a miracle. "Honey, this gift is just for you." The paper didn't last a second. Lauren pulled out a key tied with velvet ribbon, the spark of yet another whim fulfilled. "A new, modern, stylish apartment in the city," Mom declared. "You deserve it." Lauren's laugh burst, electric as she hugged our parents. In that spin, her eyes met mine. It lasted less than a breath, but said it all. She'd won again. I stood there, surrounded by lights that didn't warm and scents that weren't real, hearing the toasts echo like rehearsed applause. And in that moment, I understood that no amount of decor covers the emptiness of a gift that will never be mine. But the story, oh, that's nowhere near done. Power, plain and simple. This was exactly where I was meant to be. I clenched my hands in my coat pockets. Nails against my palms reminded me to breathe. They were still the same. Blatant favoritism, comfortable blindness. But tonight would be different. I'd flip the script they'd memorized all their lives. The chatter about Lauren's gift faded in satisfied laughter. Then I stood. From my bag, I pulled a white box, plain, almost anonymous, clashing with the shine they worshipped. "I brought a gift too," I announced. The words sliced the air. Dad frowned when I handed him the box. No bows, no colored paper, just truth, compact. He opened it. Inside lay an envelope on a law firm's letterhead. 3 seconds later, every ounce of Christmas charm evaporated. Mom covered her mouth. She couldn't breathe. Lauren, glass frozen mid-lift, leaned in to decipher the bold lines. Silence pressed down. Dad held the stack of documents in trembling fingers, his face draining with every paragraph. The lake house, their pride, the family showcase, the guarantee of Lauren's dreams, was there in undeniable print, as mine, legally, irrevocably mine. There was no escaping that page. The family gathered in the still dark morning living room, letters spread out on the table. Dad clutched the papers like air. "They can't have done this." His voice cracked. Disbelief stayed in his eyes. I sat across from them, legs crossed, breathing steady. I spoke without raising my voice. "It's legal, Dad. The debt came due, the bank took the house, and I bought it. Everything's signed." Lauren stepped forward, shoulders tight. "Impossible. That house is the family's. You can't just show up and take everything." I met her stare. The next words raised a wall. "It's not the family's. It's been mine for weeks." Mom wrung her hands, searching for an exit. "We can find another solution, Melissa. There's still time." I tilted my head, firm. "There are no more deals, Mom." Dad slammed the table. The crack shattered the silence. "Do you know what you're doing? That house is our legacy." I drew a deep breath. Time to rip off the veil. Legacy? This family forged my signature to get loans and cover Lauren's mistakes. This family treated me like I was invisible. Today, I decide. The room grew heavy. For the first time, they heard the truth unfiltered. And in the middle of the silence, they realized the past was collecting its price right there, on a floor that no longer belonged to them. The wall clock was the only sound left when Dad broke the silence. "If you walk out that door, Melissa, you're no longer our daughter." His words hung heavy in the air. Mom clasped her hands, speechless. Lauren, frozen, searched for an answer inside herself but found only fear. I stood slowly, every move calculated, marking the end of a play. I slipped on my coat, felt my heart pound, but didn't hesitate. At the door, I turned to face them all. Mom's despair, Lauren's shock, Dad's face twisted, trying to hide fear behind anger. "Fine," I said, voice steady. "Because I never belonged here. Pretending doesn't make sense anymore." I turned the knob. The door slammed behind me, and the echo rolled into the white night outside. The biting air hit my lungs, burning and at the same time making room for something new. For the first time in years, I breathed without weight. I stepped into the snow, light, free, alive. First came the short taps, buzzing on the table like a heart on high alert. When the sound didn't get a response out of me, the phone started shaking nonstop, a constant reminder that someone, somewhere, was demanding my attention. My mom's voice reached me first, long voice notes that sounded like bottled-up sobs. "Melissa, if we lose the lake house, we'll have nowhere to go. That's where our story is kept. Please, honey." Right after that, my dad's texts sliced through the air like shrapnel. "You don't do this to your own family. You'll regret it." Finally, Lauren let loose a machine gun burst of accusations. "Who do you think you are? Give the house back now. Our parents fought for it." When they realized the attack wasn't working, they switched from weapons to begging. The messages went soft, almost whispered, but it was too late. Every word hit my skin and slid off without a mark. I didn't need to answer. The silence said it all. Weeks later, I heard from others that the perfect facade was starting to crack. The lake house, that symbol of power they guarded so fiercely, was now the epicenter of a downfall I didn't have to watch. I stayed away, feeling for the first time the calm sound of a quiet phone. Once the lakeside refuge was out of the picture, the bank moved in without mercy. The payments, now impossible, finally toppled the fragile castle our family had built. Mom started selling off heirlooms, every ring, every family brooch exchanged for wilted bills, her hands shaking with every deal closed. Dad, already near retirement, began handing out resumes and job lines. The former head of the house, now just another face in the crowd, trying to save what was left of his name. Lauren refused to accept the fall. She smothered our parents with pleas. "Fix everything, give me my life back." But there were no tricks, no secret reserves, no magic. Her frantic calls echoed the panic of someone who learns too late that the princess title doesn't come with a bailout clause. Meanwhile, I took over the lake house. Every room got a fresh coat of paint, warm colors replacing the soulless beige. Lauren's gilded photos vanished from the walls. In the silence that remained, I found a kind of peace I'd never known. I swapped show-off furniture for couches that invite you to sit, heavy drapes for light fabrics that let in air and sun. With every detail, the house stopped being the family's showroom and became my shelter. Outside, their world was falling apart. In here, I could breathe. No guilt, no gloating, just the calm of finally owning my space. Have you ever felt the peace of a lake at dawn? I felt it every morning. Coffee in hand, eyes on the water, the sky reflected back like a mirror. That's when I realized the noise I'd been missing wasn't birdsong, but the silence of all the demands that had followed me forever. For years, I'd accepted being a supporting character. At dinners, I lowered my voice so Lauren could shine. On ordinary days, I pretended to fit the mold they drew for me, until the mold broke, and with it, the habit of asking permission to exist. It was on a cold afternoon. I was walking by the water when the phone buzzed. Unknown number. In the past, that was enough to spike my heart rate. It could be the sorry I'd waited for my whole life. It could be the tether pulling me back. But I let it ring. The sound got lost in the wind. I felt something new. Relief. I didn't need that voice, that apology, that crumb of recognition. This isn't a revenge story. It's about locking doors from the inside, and finding out the key had always been in my hand. I think you get it. How many times do we stand in the affection line, waiting for someone to really see us? How many messages, how many maybes, hold our joy hostage. I stopped running. When the phone went silent, the lake was still there, motionless, watchful. It reflected the sky, and for the first time, it reflected the person I chose to be, whole, without an audience, without borrowed applause. If this video stays with you after you switch off the screen, let it leave a question. Whose unknown number still has you on a leash? Maybe today's the day to let it ring out, turn your back, and listen to something bigger. Your own life, finally, in its original voice. Really? Melissa realized that the day she looked at the house she'd been kicked out of and decided to walk back in through the front door, it wasn't just a property, it was physical proof of all the years she'd been told she'd never be enough. When she turned the key, she knew she wasn't claiming bricks. She was reclaiming her own voice. As she sifted through the silence of the rooms, she felt the weight of empty expectations evaporate. She no longer had to prove anything or seek approval from people who only knew how to take. With every box unpacked, she left behind the need to be accepted. With every piece of furniture moved into place, she renewed her promise to live for herself. And then, something shifted. The old urgency for forgiveness or revenge lost its meaning. She understood that happiness doesn't come when someone admits they were wrong, but when you are enough for yourself. The love she'd always searched for outside now pulsed inside. Today, Melissa isn't just celebrating getting a house back. She's celebrating taking charge of her own story. She discovered her worth isn't under contract to anyone. And you? Have you thought about what still keeps your heart chained behind locked doors? If you were in her shoes, would you have the courage to turn down a life that doesn't honor you? Drop your comment and stick around for more stories about strength, self-discovery, and the guts to choose who you want to be.